This morning, the radical Supreme Court is eviscerating Americans' rights and endangering their health and safety.
The right to make the best decisions for your health. The right to use birth control, a married couple in the privacy of their bedroom, for God's sake. The right to marry the person you love.
This is the first time in the history of our nation that a constitutional right has been taken from the people of America.
This decision and this policy will kill people no matter what.
All right, today we're going to level set what's going on at the Supreme Court level with their decision to overturn Roe versus Wade. Interestingly, took Friday off, not the best day, admittedly, but we're going to level set everything that happened over the weekend. Democrats are shouting, Republicans are celebrating. What is going on and what's actually true? All that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
2, 1.
Here we go!
Might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually her name, Jobob.
Live from the dingy bunker, completely cut off from the outside world. Thanks so much for tuning in on today. It is June 27th, the year of our Lord 2022. I've had to check my watch the last couple times. I'm not entirely sure why, to see what the date was. But thanks so much for tuning in to Daily Caller Live. My name is Jobob. Really appreciate you being here on the Monday after the weekend of craziness. On Friday, if you weren't paying attention at all for some reason, the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. Now, there were several components of this that were kind of a topic of discussion of how do I cover this? I was away over the weekend with a bunch of friends actually talking about how do we cover the Roe versus Wade overturning at the Supreme Court level. Obviously, we could cover the protests / riots / craziness going on the streets in front of the Supreme Court in downtown Los Angeles, and we will. We'll get to all of that, but probably tomorrow. What I thought was the most important thing to cover was what is actually true. I don't know if you have a lot of friends on the left. I do. I have a ton of friends on all sides of the political spectrum. That's the way I think it should be. I think you should always talk to people who disagree with you politically. It's the best way to enact civil discourse. So with that, I saw a ton of my friends, people who I like and I know to be smart people, post things that were utterly absurd on social media. And now, I don't want to necessarily blame them because they're just echoing what the pro-choice side is telling them to echo. A lot of your Democrat politicians, Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, AOC, Kamala Harris, a bunch of them got out there and said ridiculous things. Now, if they're saying ridiculous things, the people on the cable news, Rachel Maddow, Joy Reid, are going to say even more ridiculous things, and therefore the people online are going to say even more ridiculous things. So I feel like the best use of time today is to level set what is actually happening and what's going on. Immediately after the Supreme Court decision was made, Nancy Pelosi took to the stand and drove the wedge so far that I don't know how people wouldn't have terrible and bad information. Watch this from the Speaker of House immediately after the decision on Friday, talking about how she views the Supreme Court's ruling. Check this out.
There's no point in saying good morning because it certainly is not one. This morning, the radical Supreme Court is eviscerating Americans' rights and endangering their health and safety. But the Congress will continue to act to overcome this extremism and protect the American people. Today, the Republican-controlled Supreme Court has achieved their dark, extreme goal of ripping away a woman's right to make their own reproductive health decisions. Because of Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell, and the Republican Party, their supermajority in the Supreme Court, American women today have less freedom than their mothers. With Roe and their attempt to destroy it, radical Republicans are charging ahead with their crusade to criminalize health freedom.
Okay, so the one thing I think we should take away from that, and to back up before Nancy Pelosi gave that speech, when the ruling came down, and this is as cynical as you can get, and I don't think I can get any more cynical about politicians. Before the ruling came down, I would guarantee that Nancy Pelosi was excited for Roe versus Wade to be overturned. Not because she's pro-life by any stretch of the imagination, because Democrats, according to literally everyone, are going into a midterm where they're going to get smacked. And Nancy Pelosi, I guarantee you, in her head, was thinking, finally, we have something to rally voters to the polls for the midterms. Finally, we have something to enrage our side to the polls. Mostly because Republicans, but because of the guide of Joe Biden, are going to have a fantastic midterm. So Nancy Pelosi herself, being as cynical as she is, took that approach in this press conference, saying are eviscerating the rights of women everywhere in the United States. I don't know how obvious we should be when we're discussing this, so I'm going to take it from the lowest ground level. I don't know what you know, and I don't know what viewers who might see this know. So just to kind of explain things from the basis level, the biggest argument I think that people on the left have been saying for years now is, well, men shouldn't have any say in reproductive rights of women. Men should not have any say in whether or not a woman can make their own decision on whether or not they should keep or abort a fetus/child. The polling does not indicate that that would do anything. And what I mean by that is, let's just say, hypothetically, you took men entirely out of the conversation. The polling would show that women polled just as women, whatever the heck that is, hashtag what is a woman, women themselves are directly and evenly split on what to do. So the idea that, quote unquote, men, again, whatever that is, hashtag what is a woman, but the idea that men are making decisions for women's bodies is just not accurate. That's the baseline standard. Are there more men on the Supreme Court? Yes, there are. Does it matter in terms of, in the relation to how many women themselves don't agree that abortion should be a quote unquote constitutional right, which we'll get into that language in just a little bit? No, it doesn't make a difference at all. So that argument is gone. That's been used for however many decades. Here is now then Joe Biden in his statement that came after Nancy Pelosi. We're doing this kind of in chronological order of Nancy was first, then was Joe Biden, then it was Kamala Harris, then the floodgates opened for all of your big talking political lefties to get on cable news and start spouting about what they thought of abortion. So we've knocked down that baseline argument of men shouldn't be making decisions for women's bodies. That just doesn't, it's completely irrelevant because as many women are pro-life as there are pro-choice. It's all a wash from there. Then we get to Joe Biden, and here's what Joe Biden said immediately after the decision came down, after Nancy Pelosi. Watch this.
The right to make the best decisions for your health. The right to use birth control, a married couple in the privacy of their bedroom, for God's sake. The right to marry the person you love. Justice Thomas said as much today. He explicitly called to reconsider the right of marriage equality, the right of couples to make their choices on contraception. This is an extreme and dangerous path the court is now taking us on.
So then there's that argument. Now, if you haven't already, I'm seeing a bunch of people watching. We've got a pretty solid viewership today. If you wouldn't mind, give it a little like button, click the little share button, because I think a lot of people, and including your lefty friends, to calm them down a little bit, need to hear some of these cases being made. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, I would really, really appreciate it. What Joe Biden said then is going to make the other argument that's being made, or one of the many other arguments that's being made on the left side of the aisle, the quote-unquote pro-choice side of the aisle. Well, if Roe versus Wade falls, what's next? Does Brown versus the Board of Education stand? Does this is a real thing, by the way. This, you might be thinking, wait, what? How was that even on the chopping block? It's not, but they're making the argument that it is. Joe Biden said, well, the right to marry who you love or whatever. Eric Swalwell, congressman from California, if you remember, a couple months ago when the opinion was leaked, his down the path of overturning Roe versus Wade was, what's next? Interracial marriage? Oh no. Am I going to have to get a divorce because the government says that interracial marriage is no longer legal? No, that is not the case at all. And literally nobody actually believes that, even if they're saying it from the platform of a podium in the White House or on MSNBC or CNN. That's not in that. No. And the reason why, one, because the obvious, of course, that's not going to happen. But the biggest reason why the Supreme Court isn't going to take on any reversing gay marriage, reversing interracial marriage, reversing Brown versus Board of Education, the reason that none of that is actually going to happen is because there's zero appetite for it. There are not people protesting at the Capitol every year, the March for Life, which I think gets like 1 million people there. Maybe that's high, maybe 100,000. I'm not entirely sure how many people show up to the March for Life. But because there is a massive appetite for someone to make a decision on this, whether or not it's constitutional or not, because that's what the decision was, that's where the appetite for this comes from. There is no appetite to overturn gay marriage or overturn interracial marriage. That's not a thing. So that whole side is debunked entirely. Which brings us to the point that would be a good point if it were real. There are arguments on the left side of the aisle that are going to make some waves, and for good reason. The idea of ectopic pregnancies, septic uteruses, and other severe health concerns are a good argument on whether or not you can get those treatments which would effectively abort a baby. Those are good arguments to be made. However, they're not being made in good faith because what they're saying just isn't true. This is Kamala Harris over the weekend saying things that she has to know. There are a couple things going on here. Either Kamala Harris is being super cynical and just lying to people and assuming that the American population won't fact check her at any level, or she actually doesn't know. I don't believe the part about that maybe she doesn't know. I don't think that. I think she's cynical. But given people that I know who have worked with her, maybe she doesn't. She's, I think, incredibly lazy. I don't think she's dumb, but I think she's lazy and doesn't look into things. But here's what Kamala Harris said regarding the argument that actually is a good argument of what do you do about medical necessity of it. Now you're putting the woman's life at risk. What do you do about that? Here's what Kamala Harris said, and here's what's actually taking place, even in the most restrictive states around the country. Watch this.
This is a healthcare crisis. Because understand, millions of women in America will go to bed tonight without access to the health care and reproductive care that they had this morning, without access to the same health care or reproductive health care that their mothers and grandmothers had for 50 years. This is the first time in the history of our nation that a constitutional right has been taken from the people of America.
Okay, so that's Kamala, again, making the healthcare argument, I think. Now, they look at healthcare in a different way than I do, but I'm just going to assume, probably incorrectly, but for the sake of argument, assume that Kamala Harris is talking about, well, what about these dangerous pregnancies, rare as they may be, What do we do about that? Well, here's this. This is from Healthline. When people, so just the reason why we're doing this is because you're going to hear these arguments, and I'd like you to know what the actual truth is when it comes to combating these arguments. You're going to hear, I've seen so many freaking people on social media. I screenshotted one of the ones that I shared, that somebody shared earlier. Maybe I'll read through it after this. But you're going to hear the arguments. What about ectopic hair? What about septic uterus? What about all of these other severe health problems for the woman? What do you do about that? There are carve-outs. They're telling you that there are no carve-outs, but there are definitely carve-outs. This is from Healthline. Missouri's abortion bill originally banned abortions to treat ectopic pregnancies, but legislators deleted the ectopic pregnancy provision after backlash. Basically saying is it was in some states, and now remember, legislators are not health professionals. So they passed a law that completely banned all abortions, including ectopic care and including uterus, including all of the health reasons that all of the like severe health reasons that would put the unborn child and the mother at severe risk. They banned all of it. Then guess what? The system did its job, and there was severe backlash. I don't think they passed. This article doesn't say whether or not they actually passed it, but that was in the bill. And then the public was like, hey, what the heck about all of these other things? And then they were like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. We should include a provision for that. So there's a provision for that. Even though Kamala Harris, and like you'll see in a second, AOC is saying there's no provision for severe cases, again, rare as they may be, there is, even in your most restrictive states. During the state Senate debate, an anti-abortion bill in Oklahoma, a senator asked why there should be exceptions for ectopic pregnancies, the Washington Post reported. That doesn't matter. You can ask a question. For the Louisiana personhood bill, an assistant professor at the Business Law School of Georgia College and State University, specializing in constitutional law, added that the language of the bill is extremely broad. As more states are restrictive on abortion, concerns grow that whether or not people will be able to safely get, quote unquote, care for ectopic pregnancies in a post-Roe world. In some of these states, it is banned. But guess what? The system will do its job. I think immediately, and I should have pulled up the article, immediately, as soon as Roe got passed, there was a bill introduced into the Louisiana legislature that said, hey, we're got to carve out a provision for these rare but severely life-threatening pregnancies. What I'm saying here and what the bottom line is that nobody thinks that ectopic pregnancy care and uterine sepsis care and all of the other severe health crises that put the mother and the unborn child at severe risk of death, nobody thinks that those should be outlawed. And even the states with most restrictive laws, one, have deleted that provision and therefore say, yeah, there needs to be some sort of exemption for these particular pregnancies. Or two, will do so immediately. If there is a state that says no abortions whatsoever, and I hate using the word abortion to clump in with the ectopic pregnancy care and uterine sepsis pregnancy care. Even if there is a state that says that, no, we can't even do that, it won't last. I will guarantee you that pro-choicers will start winning elections because the public perception of this is going to be that you have to have carve-outs for severe health risk. Nobody denies that, except for AOC, who was on Meet the Press this weekend, and she said this.
This decision and this policy will kill people, no matter what their spin and what their talking points are, and that's what the data shows, and that's what the statistics show.
Okay, so that's not true. Again, we're talking about different things here. This, I think, is, if I were to bottom line it, I've got a bunch more of this. Well, you know what? Let me just read this. This is from CNBC. Abortion bans in Arkansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Missouri, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Utah, and Alabama went immediately into effect. So there are trigger laws that said if Roe versus Wade gets overturned, here's what the law of the land is going to be. The laws make performing an abortion felony punishable by years in prison. In some cases, they do not make exceptions for rape and incest. We'll talk about that in just a quick second. However, women cannot be prosecuted for receiving abortions under these laws in some cases. Let's see. Wisconsin has a 19th century law in the books banning nearly all abortions, but the state's Democratic governor and attorney general said they will not enforce it. Doctors in Wisconsin have reportedly stopped providing abortions following the Supreme Court's decision. That's not super helpful. This is just, again, a more lefty take. You know what? We don't need to continue going on into this. Basically, what the bottom line here is that the polling shows that the overwhelming majority of the country does not agree with any sort of late-term abortion. And by late term, I mean like second trimester. The majority of the country doesn't think that that's okay. And so with that, they do think that there, in some cases, need to have healthcare procedures because the mother and the child will most certainly die. Pretty much everybody agrees on that. Left, right, center. So I don't know what we're arguing here, basically. The bottom line is I don't know what we're arguing. People on the left are saying you're trying to get rid of healthcare, the actual need for an abortion that will kill the mother. No, we're not. Nobody's saying that. That's literally not happening. I don't know what we do with that. I would say, well, I'm not going to get in there because that seems to be a little bit condescending. To sum up the entire episode today is that calm the F down, I think. I think that's what I'd like to say. Nobody is actively trying to kill mothers or prospective mothers who have a severe medical condition. That's not happening. So calm the F down and chill the F out. Do it in a polite way. If you can explain this to somebody, as I have in a couple Instagram direct messages, do so. I think you should. Because there are a lot of people that are just woefully misinformed. And that's actually the scariest part about this to me. If you have the opportunity, kindly, in a godly manner, try to explain that nobody's trying to get rid of the severe health warning provisions. I sound like a broken record. I've said that a million times. I want to end it on this. This is kind of funny. The Chiron here says, I almost feel bad for these people. And I do genuinely almost at this point just feel bad. This is Green Day singer Billy Joe Armstrong at a concert in the UK. Well, I'm just going to play what he said. Spoiler alert. He said he's going to renounce his U.S. citizenship over Roe versus Wade. Watch this, and then we'll get to some irony at the other side. Ending it on kind of a lighter-hearted note before we go into another dreary day tomorrow about all the protests and the crazy things that people say. I'm just going to play it. Here we go. Watch this.
America, I'm fucking renouncing my citizenship. I'm fucking coming here. I have just had too much fucking stupid in the world to go back to that miserable fucking excuse for a country. Oh, I'm not kidding. You're gonna get a lot of me in the coming days.
So if you didn't hear him, because it was kind of a loud thing, he just said, F the United States, I'm renouncing my citizenship. And then he said, you'll be seeing a lot of me in the coming days. He is in London, which is in the UK. The irony is that I would imagine Billy Joe Armstrong lives in either New York or California, in which abortion is widely available. Because remember, abortion didn't get Roe versus Wade, the repeal of Roe versus Wade did not get rid of abortion. It just sent it back to the states, dude. Again, I'm not sure if he knows that. He's a musician. Sometimes musicians are dumb, even though they could be wildly successful. But I would imagine he lives in probably California or New York, in which case abortions are severely accepted, widely accepted. Anybody can get it at any time in the woke states of California and New York. I would imagine he lives in one of those places. I didn't actually look because I don't actually care. But this is what's interesting about this. Just look this up right now. Abortion in the United Kingdom, the place where Billy Joe Armstrong said that he's going to live. In England, Scotland, and Wales, abortion is permitted on the grounds of a risk to life of the pregnant woman, preventing grave, permanent injury or physical, mental health. Risk of injury, physical or mental health of the pregnant woman, limiting up to a term of 24 weeks of gestation. So basically, the UK has a 24-week strict abortion ban after 24 weeks across the entire country. In other words, I would guarantee that the place that he's saying he's going to move is substantially more strict than the place that he currently lives. And he's moving from the place that he currently lives because the policy is too strict. I don't understand that. Not entirely sure how that works, dude. By the way, I'm a Green Day fan. I always liked their music. I think we did several Green Day covers in junior high in my little cover band that we're doing. Love Green Day. Wish you weren't such a moron, dude. And maybe you're not. Maybe you're a smart guy that's just very, very, very underinformed. As I think a lot of this argument is. Bottom line, summing up this episode, and I know that on this, people generally agree on all of this. So chill the F out, calm the F down. It's all going to be okay. That is going to do it for us today. As promised, tomorrow, and this is all assuming that something crazy doesn't happen the next couple days, but assuming that something crazy doesn't happen this evening that we have to bring to you tomorrow, we want to go into the protests / riots / Maxine Waters of the world, what they said in terms of the division of the country and the hypocrisy of the country. I wanted to get, again, all of this kind of like technical stuff on today about here's what's actually happening so you can be more and better informed and you can tell people how to respond to this sort of stuff. But tomorrow we will also cover the riots in the streets that took place all over the United States, specifically in places that it's totally legal. There were riots throughout Los Angeles, people blocking freeways and all of that sort of stuff. And I tweeted out over the weekend, I wonder if the rioters in Los Angeles know that nothing has changed for them. Weird. So, yeah, there's that. We will see you then. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media accounts. The Instagram page is blowing up, and I really appreciate all of you sticking around and watching that. Also, I got a Facebook page. It's The Wrong Thing. Just type in Jobob. It's the same picture of me doing this. Actually, in this hat, interestingly enough. You can follow me on Facebook, and we can have a discussion there about all of the news of the day, and also Twitter, Gitter, YouTube, Truth, all of them. I'm on all of them. Don't use some of them as much as I use other ones, but yeah, you can give me a follow on any of your social media accounts. That's going to do it for us today. Tomorrow we will again be more commenting on the rioting stuff and all of that happened over the weekend. If you missed any segment of the day, you can rewatch on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, or also listen to any of the podcast apps that you have, as it will be up later on in the day. That's going to do it for us. We will see you tomorrow. God bless America.